Hello and welcome to Hawk Talk. I'm Erin Graff, the Manager for Student Involvement.
And I'm Jesus, the Veterans and Multicultural Coordinator. Today we have the Dean of Students, Mary Kay Harton, and Paralegal Department faculty member, Shirley, with us to discuss the important issues of bias, discrimination, and reporting at Harper College.
So to start us off, Monica, can you share with us the legal definitions of bias and discrimination?
Okay, Erin. So basically, bias is a predisposition to judge. It is prejudice in favor of one thing or another. You want this over that. You prefer this over that. That's pretty much what bias is. Most of the time when we're talking about bias, though, this preference is basically considered to be unfair, though. We all have biases, right? Like everyone has biases. So I don't want people to shy away like, oh my God, I don't have bias. We all have bias. But it's when it begins to manifest itself in a way where you treat people or treat things or in an unfair manner that it becomes a problem. Discrimination is basically the unjust treatment of different categories of people. So to make it a little simpler, bias kind of gives birth to discrimination. Bias is your preference and what you think, and then discrimination is what emanates from that. I won't go too far into this, but bias is really hard and it's very complicated because there's implicit bias and there's explicit bias. Implicit bias are those things that we feel subconsciously. What do you feel what do you automatically think when you hear a name? You hear someone's name that you don't know. The images that you get in your head of that person, that's bias. That's implicit bias, right? You know nothing about them, but you already feel a particular way just from the name you've heard. Explicit bias are those things that we know about ourselves. I prefer this over that. I think this about this group of people. I want like dogs over cats. Those are explicit biases. And those aren't always bad. Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. But they're a little easier to control because at least we're aware of them, right? Implicit bias, again, is a little harder because we're not aware of it all the time. It's subconscious.
All right. Thank you, Monica. And for you, Mary Kay, can you provide some examples or example subjects of bias and discrimination?
Absolutely. Thank you, Jesus. Some examples might be race, religion, veteran status, age, citizenship, disability, gender identity, and expression. Also, marital status and national origin. And I just want to, piggyback what Monica was saying and kind of drives home with me. I'm a redhead, so some people have an implicit bias about redheads, so it could even be about that. So, but it's usually around those topics that I discussed: parental status, religion, sexual orientation.
Mary Kay, thanks for sharing. I know that that's a wide range of things, and there's things that probably that you didn't mention that students could still experience bias or discrimination in regards to. But when we talk about bias and discrimination and in the Harper College environment, can you share with us as a Dean of Students, what should students expect from Harper College and in their environment while at Harper College regarding experiencing diverse, equitable, and inclusive environments?
Wow. Harper, our core values are respect, integrity, collaboration, and excellence. And for me, we're committed to a safe, welcoming, healthy learning environment. And so a student should expect and demand from their faculty and administration to be treated with respect and to be allowed to be who they are and to be able to express who they are with respect. So absolutely, we're committed to it. And that's their right as a student here at Harper.
Wonderful. And to follow up with that, Monica, as a faculty member, I know that our classroom environments can sometimes create environments where students have an opportunity to express their opinions and have different opinions. Can you share with us about what can students expect from their classroom learning environment, whether that's online or in person?
Well, Erin, I think, as you know, I work in the legal department, which the law by itself is contentious, right? It's adversarial. And so I'll be honest, in my classrooms, I do encourage healthy debate, right? Their differing of opinions are good because that's how we learn from each other. But like you said, sometimes that can cross a line. I've had issues where students have said things, and I, as the professor, because I feel like it's my responsibility in that space to kind of step in and protect the other students that are there. It's my job to protect all students there and to educate everyone who's there. Students should expect, like Mary Kay said, a safe environment. They should expect an inclusive environment. This is their learning spaces, and they should expect to be included in that space and represented in that space, no matter what the subject matter is. I can give an example of a class I was teaching once, and we were talking about a particular law, the Stand Your Ground law, which I won't give an entire background about it, but the Stand Your Ground law is the law that acquitted George Zimmerman of the killing of Trayvon Martin. Basically, if you are feeling attacked, it's not a law that we have in Illinois. This was in Florida. If you're feeling attacked or you have the right to retaliate, even if that retaliation ends up, in the fatality of another. So we're just kind of debating this law, which, and on the surface, on the face, the law really doesn't sound like a bad thing, right? Like I should be able to defend myself. So that's where the conversation and the discussion opened up in my classroom. So we're going around kind of talking about, are you in favor of the law, or if you're not, why not? And so I had a student say to me, well, I feel like the Stand Your Ground law should be in certain places. She said, for example, like Texas, because they're closer to the border. That was her exact statement. And so given the fact that, I am a minority myself, that was a little bit of a shock to my system as well. But I also know that it's my job to educate in that space, as it is to make everyone in that space feel safe. So I recognized it immediately as some type of implicit bias, because what does the law have to do with the state being close to the border? So what I did as her professor is I kind of began to delve deeper into that and have her elaborate and explain. Like, so what's the correlation between a state being closer to the border and the Stand Your Ground law? And as she began to talk and try to explain herself, she realized, that there was some bias going on there. I didn't even have to say anything. And as the discussion got more robust in the classroom, everyone kind of helped each other to kind of see that. And she came to talk to me after class a little bit about it. And I'm not going to, sit here and say she had a whole epiphany and the bias was gone. But in that moment, we did help her to realize that. And I think a lot of times that's the way to kind of handle implicit bias, just by questioning and delving deeper. And then most of the time people will start to say to themselves like, well, why do I feel this way? Where did that come from? And I think it's important for us to self-check and do that with ourselves a lot of times. Like, why do I think that? Why am I feeling this way in this moment? What is it? What predispositions or preconceived notions are rising to the surface to make me feel this way about this particular person, about this particular group of people? So yeah. I think that's pretty much the way to handle it. And I just want to say to students out there, you have the right, as Mary Kay said, you also, you have a responsibility to yourself and your classmates to kind of call out bias.
Yes.
And to report it if you see it. And that goes from fellow classmates, a professor, a staff member. If you walk into an office and you feel like there's an interaction that has happened, please let us know, because that's the only way that we'll know about these incidents and that we can do something about them.
And if I could jump in, I think, the professor, Shirley's right. Of the students, you can ask those questions of each other. Help me understand why you feel near the border, but also go up to the professor after class. If you feel like we need to talk about this, we need to dive deeper into this didn't feel right. And then you have the right and the responsibility to report to us if you feel you've had that interaction or exchange, but demand that of the classroom environment if you feel that's happening.
one of the things that Monica, that I really appreciate you bringing out in that example is that it didn't have to be a defensive conversation,
Right.
and that it was more of a help me understand your perspective and allowing for there to be some critical thinking in regards to the comments that are being said, which allows for there to be growth and understanding and the perspectives of all individuals involved. And I think that's where when we, like you had mentioned earlier, we all have biases, and those biases should be challenged. And sometimes people say things with the best of intentions, but really the impact is where we see that there's some harm done. And so I think that you just had provided a great example of how we can challenge while still creating an inclusive environment that allows for people to express themselves and understand and grow from maybe what I had to say was not the right thing to say. And we can all be better because of it. So I love that.
Thank you, Erin. And if I could say like two more things, I wanted to say one, thank you for that. I have found, and it's taken a lot of time for me to arrive at that doing it in that manner helps the person grow and get your point across. Like when you come, sometimes we have a tendency, especially if we're offended ourselves, right, to want to offend back or go on the defense. And that doesn't really move the needle, right? That really doesn't get the point across because the other person becomes defensive and they don't really hear what you're saying. The other thing I want to say to students and to everyone is to caution everyone too, when someone is telling you that they felt a particular way about what you said, listen to them, and particularly if they are part of the group that you were discussing. We don't have the right to say you shouldn't have felt that way. Your feelings are valid. And if you are coming to a person and saying, you said this, and even if that wasn't your intent, intentions don't always match consequences. And so we need to be aware of that, right? So you need to listen to that person if they are saying, I felt a particular way when this was said.
And the talk about telling someone and letting staff and faculty know about these situations kind of brings us up to our next question. And we know that Harper strives to its best to create this best environment for students to learn and to be a part of a community that they feel that they belong to. But sometimes we just can't control the actions or words of individuals. So how can, if students aren't comfortable to bring that up to someone, how can students or anyone at Harper report an incident of bias or discrimination? And who can report, and why is it important to report these incidents?
Well, I would say, first of all, why is it important to report? Because we want to provide that inclusive, diverse, equitable, accessible, safe environment for everybody. So if we don't know, we don't want to lose you. And we want every student to feel that way, every person that is on campus and virtually in our classrooms, in our settings. So why it's important is for us to put in remedies to help address the behavior, to stop it, to educate. So that's really why. We can't get better if we don't know. And I hope you know our heart and our core values are about that. Where you can go to report, student conduct, get on the website, go to student conduct. There was a landing page and we'll walk you through the report. So you'll see about 6 buttons on there, and we'll have a bias discrimination report. Don't worry about even where to send it, just report. My team set up, we'll get it to the right office. We'll follow up. We'll do we want to get it right. So, and every student has the right to due process. Every person has the right to due process. So we're going to reach out, get everybody's version, perception, and overturn every stone so that we make the best informed decision. And sometimes it might be, I just want you to know, we'll respect and honor that. We'll make sure you know of all the support services on campus. It might be, hey, would you like to have a conversation together? We'll mediate. I've worked with Professor Shirley. We would reach out and say, hey, would you be open to a meeting? And she would be yes. And we'd all three be in a meeting and we'd talk about it. And so I just want students, especially, to know report. We're here to listen. We care. We want you to have the best experience ever. And we're all about education. And we're all about you have rights and responsibilities to help us to provide that safe environment.
Well, I know we want to thank you both for your time, and we appreciate you educating us on bias and discrimination, and encourage our students to let us know when you experience these things so that we can help create the best environment possible for all of our students. So have a wonderful day.
Erin, I think I'd like to invite Dr. Shirley to come back so we can do a unpack your bias session. So
I would love that.
that would be awesome. That would be awesome.
Wonderful. Well, stay tuned. We'll have more information for you on that coming up.